Hi, welcome to Tech Talk with Exist. I'm Jem, a fan of innovation and tech lover. Join Exist as we unravel the latest technology and insights in the IT world and how businesses can leverage on it. I am very honored because today we have two of the experts of Exist Software Labs Inc. with me. We have Exist Vice President for Engineering, Mr. Jonas Lim, and we also have one of the seasoned project manager of Exist, Josh Diaz. Welcome to Tech Talk with Exist.
Thank you, Jem.
Thank you, Jem.
So, Sir Jonas, for the benefit of our first time listeners in our podcast, can you provide a brief overview of who is Exist?
Sure. Exist at its core is a software development company. The company was founded 20 years ago. The primary clientele that we have early on were U.S. technology startups. We did a lot of open source projects, which up to today are still being used, not just locally but globally as well. Moving forward to the present, Exist is still a software development company with a lot more experience under its belt. But our focus now is really on enterprise clients, specifically for four domain or four sectors, namely the banking and finance sectors, the healthcare sector, the retail sector, and power and energy sector. Now we still do cater to other sector as well, but those four sectors are the four that we are quite focused at this moment.
Okay, Sir Jonas. And as the Vice President of Engineering of Exist Software Labs Inc., what is your vision for your technology partners or clients, specifically, sir, in the banking and financial services sector?
Our vision goes to all clients. It's really for our partners to leverage technology in their business, to give them that edge. It's making sure they have the right technology in place. When I say right technology, we can look at it at a number of ways. For me, it's number one, it must be able to uh, provide the solution that is required. Definitely, that's number one. Number two would be to make sure that it is future proof, say in the next 5 years, because technology moves a lot. So 5 years, 10 years, that should be a good enough indicator that it's in terms of future proofing the technology. When we say future proof, it's also two things. One would be making sure that it scales when the company or the organization demands or grows. The other one would be it must be flexible enough that the organization can easily pivot, add features, remove features. The third part would be to make sure that that technology is compatible to the operational capabilities of the organization and also the budgetary requirement of the organization. And the budgetary part, that's where our open source heritage comes in because we can provide options in terms of you might need a paid license or maybe you could just use the open source version for now.
So Exist can help in assessing if a client will need an enterprise license or an open source.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So thank you very much. I think our listeners will feel at ease having Access a technology partner. So without further ado, let's now start our topic for today. We have a very interesting topic, which is the new era of digitalization in the banking and financial services industry. So slowly, all banks, if not all, have returned to what we call normal or the post-pandemic. So do you think this will have an impact on the digitalization of banks and financial services?
Personally, for me, the when we say going back to the normal or old normal, especially for the banking services, it's really more of the operational side. Their employees are going back to the office. Consumers are going back to the banks. But as far as the digital context is concerned, I believe that this is already the new normal. So I don't see it going back from previous. So what the pandemic did is really just to accelerate this current status quo of digital service from the banks. So I see it just growing even further. Consumers during the pandemic were forced to embrace the digital services. especially those. There are consumers before where might be a little hesitant, especially the older generation, to use the digital services. The pandemic actually helped them just use it, and then once they used it and they experienced that it is relatively safe, it's definitely faster. You can do a lot more things. You can buy, you can do like fund transfer and all those banking services. Then I think the demand and the appetite of the consumer will just grow from there because they have already experienced it and it's okay and it's pretty good for them at least to experience. So moving forward in terms of digital transformation or requirements from banks, I think it will just grow further from this point on.
So it will just continue and it will not stop. Would you like to add on that, Josh?
Well, to your question, yes, it affects the digital banking. Um, but to my take on that is that going back to normal does not mean going back to the same digital landscape as before, having the same set of consumer expectations, or looking back where we left off before the pandemic, and from there continue with our plans or proceed with our usuals. One of the things that this pandemic did to the banking industry is that it did heighten the people's consciousness on the offerings and availments of the banking products and services in digital or electronic format. So now going back to normal means going back to your usual routines, like you do your banking activities. You pay, you withdraw, you do the funds transfer, you check your balances, you check your statement of account. But this time in the palm of your hands, meaning there are just two prerequisites for doing digital transactions. One is the gadget, and second is the internet connection.
Okay. And Josh, para naman sa benefit ng ating mga listeners today, yes. Can you share with us your journey? How did you become one of the seasoned project managers of Exist in the BFS accounts?
Well, I'd like to take you shortly after my college graduation. Well, after my college graduation, I joined the government. It's a constitutional office. My plan then was simple: take up law, pass the bar exam, and become a lawyer. But ever since I'm fascinated by how technology is helping organizations achieve the its goals, or even expediting the rendering of government services to the people. Luckily, I was part of the digitalization projects of that office. During those years, ang tawag dun is computerization, hindi digitalization. Why? Because everything was really manual. Okay? So, every time a technology is implemented, para akong masaya. So, I got contented. And then that made me think thrice to change or to shift into another domain. So, a couple of years after, I joined a local universal bank as a management trainee. It is a 6 to 7 month program that allows you to be acquainted or adept with the banking operations, and will train you to be the future leader of the bank. After that training, I joined the IT group, or particularly the IT project management office of that bank. And then, due to some reasons, I needed to work in a company near our residence. So that's how Exist found me. Yeah. So I started here as a business analyst, and now in the project management.
So, with your vast experience working for a bank and now working on an IT company, how can you say that banks were able to cope up with the demands of the market of their clients in digitalization?
Well, couple of years before the pandemic, banks were really slow into digital transformation. In 2017, that's the first project that we had here, when we had this online and mobile banking. and we were able to deliver that. We were successful in that project. In 2018, um, it was the time where the BSP, or the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, released a guidelines for IT framework. And in the same year, for boosting the financial inclusion, the BSP released its uh, framework for the basic deposit account. And we had another project for that. So we were able to help the country by developing this application that people can easily onboard and get that type of account and do the basic financial transactions. And then 2019, 2020, the pandemic hit us. Well, COVID-19 has been a catalyst for banks to see and convert into a digital platform. In 2020, in fact, the BSP released its framework, its guidelines for the digital banking. That's why we have six digital banks today. And in 2021, the then governor, BSP Governor Benjamin Jokno, issued a target. He said then that in 2023, the BSP is targeting that 50% of the financial transactions will be converted into digital format, and 70% of the ones, or the Filipinos, will have an account with the bank. So slowly, but with the pandemic, it's speeding up. Kaya yun yung how our banks are using this platform now.
I think just to add there is that one of the things that also helped actually is the technology has improved a lot. The infrastructure has improved. Our internet infrastructure in the country has improved, I think, a lot from, say, 10 years ago. So we have more options. We have faster internet connectivity. So that with other items that also Josh mentioned actually help speed up the process and then enable the banks to adapt.
To follow up on that, Sir Jonas, exist as an IT company, how do you help your technology partners, specifically the banks and financial services institutions, digitize, innovate, and personalize their offerings to their clients?
Exists as a software development company, as a technology partner, and I think it goes with other technology partners as well. Is our core business is really in technology. That is our bread and butter, and that's what we provide to banks. We provide them with, and not just banks, with others as well. We provide them with our experience and our knowledge in terms of choosing the technology, developing those technology, and making sure that they have the right technology in place. As far as personalization it goes, personalization of services uh, always starts with data. So we have that in place as well in terms of a process of capturing, processing, filtering, presentation of data. Presentation is, it can be presenting it to other applications where those applications consume those data and then present it to the end users on whichever format. So we help on those regards. But at the end of the day, we help banks in terms of their technical direction. So we provide guidelines, we provide consultancy service in terms of maybe this is a technology that is right for you now. It might not be the latest buzzword technology, but it is, it's well footed and it's stable. And at times, maybe you might use this one. You might use this new technology, new trend in place because it's something that you know, might be required to be more competitive in the next 2 3 years. So we help on that regards as far as technology is concerned.
Nice. So Exist does help from consultation, implementation, in the front end users, and even behind the scene, as a technology company. So Josh, would you like to add on what Sir Jonas?
Well, in addition to that, we also help during the development. We also help the banks to identify the best practices. We have implemented so many of this, and we also help them identify what would be the best for them. So, in terms of expertise, experience, we have that.
Thank you. So, as the technology grows and as banks digitize, of course, fraudsters, the number of fraud attacks increase as well. So there is now phishing, vishing, smishing. So insecurity is one of the main challenges or constant challenge in the banking and financial service institution. Sir John, as an expert in this industry, can you provide a checklist for our viewers, our listeners, on what they should have to ensure that their applications, their systems are secure?
Well, a checklist is a long list for this one, so I'm not sure if this is we can cover the entire thing here. But basic principle is there's two aspect that you need to look at. One is the, especially for the banking service, banking sector. One would be the social aspect, the social engineering. So what that means is just they just need to create a lot of awareness to their end user and their employees as well in terms of what and what not to do in terms of security. Simple as simple items like password protection, sharing of data, the phishing, those type. So I think constant awareness to those, and then with assumption that not everybody might be aware. It might be common for us now. It might be like a common sense thing for us, but not everybody are. We cannot assume that everybody has the same knowledge and background on, on those aspects. The other part will be the technical part, which can be a long list. So it can from a web part, you need to follow the OWASP standard, ensure that the network securities are in place. Maybe put like a DMZ setup within the banking servers. Um, it, the other thing is to make sure that there's a third party security audit in place. We can, as a company, Exist can do that, but we don't recommend that we do it actually because it it adds bias for us since we're the one developing. So a third party audit should be always in place when when developing, especially for the banking industry. But as far as lists, there's a lot of lists that we can go talk about, but I don't think it's kind of
Later on, siguro we'll have another session, so we're focusing more on the security. So Josh, would you like to add on that?
Yes, there are many risks associated with this digitalization, and we have to look at it in a holistic approach. There are many items on that list, whatever aspect it is. But insofar as project management is concerned, we make sure that you are covered. You're covered with all the regulations of the land, the requirements of the central bank, and we also make sure that some of the procedural mitigations can be automated also in our applications to address the risk, particularly in security.
the other thing is that to assume that there's going to be an intrusion, say, in the system. Now, when you assume that, then you need to ensure that everything is audited. So that's one thing that we do in a lot of our and most of our project, if not all, is that we have a strong auditing system in place. So if there's like an intrusion, we can go deep and see the cause, and then we can figure out how to mitigate it and prevent it later on. But if because no systems are perfect, right? So you need to assume that there's going to be, if not now, maybe in the future. So what do you do when that happens? So that's one thing. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. And of course, a lot, if not all, are into digitalization. So being ahead in this space is a leverage actually for banks and financial service institutions. So as experts in this field, what are the new technologies or innovations that you think banks and financial service institutions should adopt?
There's a lot right now. There's coming up. AI is, I think, it's all over the place right now. So there's a lot of applications that the banking industry can adapt to using AI, machine learning. Data is one. Data has been around for a long time, but there are a lot of ways right now, current technologies that allows you to process data, capture data faster, more efficient, more flexible way of doing those things and presenting those data. The other thing would be the infrastructure itself. because cloud has been in place, but there's a concept of hybrid setup, multi-cloud environment. That's in terms of infrastructure that I think the banking industry can also look at. In fact, a lot of the banking industries are already in there. The new thing would be having that hybrid setup in place just to ensure there's like a high availability. There's a DR already in place in terms of infrastructure. Uh, the other technology trends, it's really more of a process trend in terms of technology, is ensuring that you have DevOps or DevSecOps in place during development, because it makes it more predictable when you do develop, when you do enhancements, because the systems that the bank use, like any other systems, will always have enhancement, will always have bug fixes. So if you have that process in place where it makes it easier, more efficient to say put up a enhancement on your production site or on production on your mobile device, then uh, it's an edge for the banks in terms of features, in terms of what the I guess what the end user or the consumer can see and feel. There's digital onboarding, right? We've been doing that for what was past 3 years, 2 years. Uh, but the digital onboarding part currently right now is I imagine it to be more end to end, say in the next year or two. Meaning, the process of digital onboarding today is that it's kind of more of like enticing people to do digital onboarding, uh, but would require later on to say go to the bank to submit certificates or submit documents. So I see that as we progress with this digital transformation to be more end to end. So you don't have to go to the banks anymore to, and of course there's a BSP, regulatory thing that needs to be considered there. But I see that moving forward to be something that would be happening. Digital identification, digital identity is something that goes hand on hand with that one. So that thing will, I think, move forward in terms of maturity and sophistication, EKYC and all those stuff. The other thing would be probably wallets. Wallets has been kind of replacing the cards right now. So it's a technology, or it's a trend that I think that a lot of the banks or the financial sector will be going into if they haven't. So those are some that top of my head I can think of in terms of innovations.
Okay, you mentioned, Sir Jonas, earlier AI. So when you say AI, are this the chatbots used?
Yeah, it can be chatbots. AIs can also be done in the on predictive analytics. So there's a lot of applications of AIs that the banking sector can actually take advantage of. The one technology that I haven't mentioned would be the blockchain, the crypto, and all those stuff. It's a disruptive technology for the banking sector. I think it has its place, and it's something that I think one or two of the banks here already are kind of embracing right now. So yeah.
You also mentioned, sir, machine learning. So I'm just wondering, as a user, what use case does machine learning can be implemented in banks?
Machine learning can be done in like the data sector and the data solutions field. You can do a lot of machine learning can also be applied in the AI part in terms of the chatbots and more personalized way of providing service to your end user, to the customer.
How about, sir, you've mentioned wallets, e-wallets, right? So these are fusions of different domains like banks and telecommunication. So moving forward, do you see, sir, fusion of other verticals like banks and other?
Yes, I think that's already happening right now with, say, a telco. Telco is already, I think, for the longest time, I've been entering the banking domain via the wallets. The other industry that we kind of see that's kind of fusing with the bank would probably be retail. So you can just imagine a cash register being used as to provide banking services. You can deposit, you can withdraw. In some instance, I think we've actually already implemented that type of system, but not here locally in another country. I think that would be something that would be common in the coming years.
Josh, would you like to add on what innovations as a user would like to use or see in the banks and financial services?
Well, I'd like to expound a little bit more on what Sir John has said, particularly on the digital banks. It's because it's very early in the country. Digital banks, so we have six currently. Six of them were given the certificate of authority by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Now, digital banks, and for the sake of our viewers and listeners, these are banks that offer financial services and goods in a digital platform, meaning they are being processed end to end digitally. So meaning unlike before that when you onboard, you really have to go to the bank, to the physical branch to validate your identity. But now it's really online. In fact, they are not allowed to put up a branch. One of the guidelines for putting up a digital bank. So everything is really so something that we look forward into in the near future. How this type of bank will flourish in the country.
Actually, what I'm quite interested would be what would be how the digital bank and our traditional bank right now would be later on fusing in terms of, because right now, like you said, there's a license, like six license right now for
Yes,
digital banking, but it might go up later on.
definitely.
And what happens if the other traditional banks already has those license? So the in terms of services, there's going to be like a gray area, which one is digital, which one is not. So I'm quite interested what will happen if once those two related but kind of different financial services would later merge in terms of regulatory requirements and all those stuff.
As a curious question, you've mentioned earlier, sir, the fusion of different verticals, right? For example, since one of the well-known e-wallets right now is Gcash, for example, Gcash, is it working at the back end? Is it already integrated with a bank to offer financial service, of course? So,
I'm pretty sure they are. I'm pretty sure they are. They have a banking. I mean, Gcash is part of BPI in terms of conglomerate. So, but yeah, it's a different business model. But I would probably expect it that there's like a banking at the back of it.
so e-wallets are also powered or they partner as well with banks to provide financial services to their clients. Am I right?
I probably would say yes, but I am not an expert on that one. So, because they could probably be just them, but and then BSP would provide a way of a license for them to operate if they have enough financial capital. But it's not something that I'm 100% sure right now.
I'm asking this, sir, because, of course, one of the technology innovations right now in the BFS industry is open banking. Is this something related to that?
No, open banking is really more of banks will be able to connect with each other and even with other services outside the banking sector. In terms of technology is already there. We actually implemented a few. For me, it's just being able to connect with your services, the banking services, to be used with, say, let's say retail. Yeah, you could the cash register example I gave earlier. Now you have this POS machine that can be used as a banking platform where you can do deposit and withdrawal. So it's just for me, it's allowing those services from the bank to be exposed and consumed by different parties.
And when you say expose, is it through API?
Yeah, it could be through API gateways or API management or other services that they may have.
Okay. Another question, Web3, sir. It's one of the buzzwords in the industry as well as a new innovation. What is Web3, sir?
Web3, well, it's a new buzzword. So So Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. So Web 3 is basically based on the blockchain architecture, and it's for me to sum it up personally, and it's just me. It's really more of a way of ownership, owning the product, the service, allowing individuals to basically own and profit from that service or product that they may have. Classic example would be NFT, for example. You can do like a digital art and then be able to sell it and earn from it. So from a banking perspective, it's there. I'm sure it's going to be a disruptive technology at this moment in time, at least for exist. It's not. I would probably say it's not something that we are doing in the near future. It's something that we can explore.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir. Josh, before we end the show, or Tech Talk with Exist, do you have anything that you want to share with our listeners?
I'd like to say that in Exist, we have this expertise when it comes to digitalization of your or using a digital platform for financial services and goods. Now, we have this experience, a long list of applications developed for these kinds of projects.
Okay, and our last message to our listeners, Sir Jonas.
Well, first, thank you for this podcast. Yeah, if there's a need to for like consulting or helping on your digital journey, Exist will be there to provide service to that. We have, like Josh mentioned, we have a good amount of experience in developing and in technology in general and in the banking sector. I think we've had that experience already. It it's I think relatively it's still young in terms of our experience compared with say those company that's really focused on banking. But I think we have a fair amount of experience that we can share with anyone who would like to ask for our service.
Okay. So, to our listeners, I think Josh and Jonas was able to provide us with a lot of input on who is Exist, what they do, and the services that they provide. And I am very, very sure that the applications that they provide is actually future proof, and it's not something that the users will only use for this year. And for more information, of course, you can tune in to Tech Talk with Exist because we have several series of talks specially made for our listeners. And you can also visit our website at www.exist.com. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast.